Welcome back to We All Still Play Galaxy of Heroes, and we've got ourselves a new kit. We've got Bo-Katan coming into the game in a few hours, and I think this is a potentially very fun one. We're going to break that down, break down the insights. We're also then going to give some of my initial thoughts on Conquest. The armor is now farmable, and just touch upon that for a second, and then we'll finish up as we usually do with the gearing of my free-to-play roster. This channel is always going to be free to play, and everything I do it operates from that standpoint. So first up is the breakdown of the kit, as we like to do on this channel, where we strip out all the extraneous information, get down just to the basic core of what's going on here. Her basic ability, Practiced Aim, that's an attack. If it's Bo-Katan's turn, she inflicts vulnerable. Otherwise, she deals more damage with her basic. The vulnerable debuff, that guarantees a critical hit next time. I had to remind myself what that one was about. Special 1, Crippling Strike. This is a great animation that we'll take a look at in a second. It's an AoE Dispel. Then it inflicts damage and a 2-turn daze. The unique, which has the Zeta, and I'm very happy this is a 1 Zeta character with the unique, with the Zeta being on the unique. For each Mandalorian ally, gain 20% protection. When a Mandalorian ally attacks out of turn, Mandalorian allies then recover 8% health and protection. And as we will see with the developer insights, one of the things that I highlight is characters like Jango, Canderous, who are using their basics multiple times on their basic turn. Each time that is going to be recovering that 8% health and protection. The leader ability, when Mandalorian ally uses basic, a random Mandalorian ally will assist, dealing 20% less damage. The one thing that I'm wondering here is how that's going to, how the math works with Bo-Katan's basic herself. And then when Mandalorian allies attack out of turn, they'll be gaining 25% crit damage, which will be stacking until their turn. So if you get the right RNG and the same character is doing all the out of turn attacks, then that can stack up to 5. And at the start of the battle, Mandalorian allies will gain the granted ability Ancestral Armor. This is like Thrawn's lead, where Thrawn's lead has that little headshot of him, which gives that dispel. This is going to be a similar thing where the Ancestral Armor will be dispelling all debuffs, and then the character who uses the ability will gain defense up, taunt, tenacity up for 2 turns. Now that we've broken down the kit, we're going to quickly run through the post and look at the animations and revisit some of the specifics. So the basic, just a targeted attack on a character, inflicting that debuff. This is a great animation, one of the best ones in the game, I would say. Dispelling all the buffs on enemies with that daze, which daze is a very nice, powerful debuff. The unique, this is very important because this is where a lot of her abilities and what makes her kit special is coming from. If she is gone, this ability is gone. So the shared stats of the max protection and that recovery that Bo-Katan is adding to the Mandalorian faction, that's going to be going away if you take her out. And then the leadership ability, again, this adds all those random assists and has stacking critical damage with the granted ability, which has a dispel, a taunt, defense up. So she's still going to have a lot of defensive viability, but I think because if you target your attacks on Bo and take her out, I don't think this is going to be a great defensive team for Grand Arena. with the developer insights, there wasn't a lot of information here. Sometimes I think there is, sometimes there isn't. One of the things to highlight is Canderous and Sabine have a slight tweak to their kits so that they have Mandalorian synergy. What that comes down to is Canderous is unique, now has a reference to Mandalorian allies, but it doesn't change his unique. What it is, he has health, steal, and potency based on the number of allies that he synergizes with. That now works with Mandalorians. And Sabine has a similar thing where she deals damage and inflicts expose based on having similar allies, and now it works with Mandalorians. So not a huge deal, but that now will work with them, so that barely even a touch-up. Now, the next portion here, that with the basics, the thing that I think is worth highlighting are the references here to just how she is going to be synergizing with the Mandalorian characters, how she's adding all of this recovery and assists. That's really what her kit is built around, are those abilities. And then they have a point here about Armor's leader ability provides the Mandalorian squad with a more defensive option. Bo-Katan's kit is a more offensive direction. That's all very relative in speaking, although I think Bo-Katan isn't going to work well defensively, because if you take her out, that team is going to fall apart. But I don't think the Armor's leader ability is going to prove to be a better defensive option than Bo. This is all relatively speaking. One of the things when it comes to the Armor, that's just straight protection up. That's basically Bastila Shan's leadership without the Zeta. And without Bastila's Zeta, that leadership isn't all that great, because what makes Bastila Shan so tough to deal with is the tenacity up, not just the protection up. You can get through the protection up. It just takes a little bit of extra time. One of the things that I used to really like doing in Territory Wars years ago when she first was brought into the game was you could take a Rogue One team, a Jin lead team, up against a Bastila Shan team without the Zeta, and all those exposes Jin would be putting onto the team would just rip through a Bastila Shan team without the Zeta. With the Zeta, that no longer works. So I think if you start seeing like Armor-led teams, then you could potentially do something like that, where just take in Jin and rip through that protection up. Like, the protection up is barely enough to make the Armor lead viable. Now, the other thing to talk about here is Canderous Ordo. He was already a very good sneaky relic. That relic did a ton of damage. If you look at my methods relic video where I talk about the thinking behind what I think makes a good relic, he was the type of character I was talking about, where you have all these multiple attack characters. And I think now with Bo-Katan, he could potentially become a very high priority character to get to relics if you don't have him at relics already. He's been on my short list for a very long time, but I may now prioritize him. It's something that in a few hours, when some of these spenders get their videos out testing Bo's kit, I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to what Canderous is going to be doing and how he's going to be fitting with those teams, because he could potentially be doing a ton of damage. So far, I'm very happy with Conquest. This time around, I am doing hard mode, because with hard mode, hitting this first kit gets you the same amount of Razor Crest shards. Like, the gear and stuff's a little different. I'm not going to break that down, but all I really care about, since fleet is very important to me, are the Razor Quest shards. So with that, as long as I'm hitting that first crate, I'm doing the same as a final crate finish in normal mode, and anything above that, any crate above the first one in hard mode, is going to be outdoing normal mode. So we are going with that, and with my roster, I should be able to finish through Sector 3 no problem. Sector 4 starts getting more problematic, but Night Sisters can usually handle C fairly well. So there's a chance I can handle Sector 4. Sector 5, we'll see. I can check back in after this conquest and show you how I perform. The other thing I want to talk about here are some of the data discs I like. I don't have the full roster of data discs. The other thing I'm doing right now is I'm not refreshing energy. I'm just playing through with a normal amount of energy, seeing how that goes. The first time around in normal mode, I refreshed 3 times a day. I was impatient, but I finished Conquest at that rate in like 3 or 4 days. So this time around, going to probably not do any refreshes, maybe 1 per day. Or not 1 per day, but 1 every few days. And see how that, at which rate I progress through Conquest. I don't think there's any reason to race through it, and I was out of things a little too quickly, refreshing as much as I was doing last time. So in terms of these data discs, what I have been going for, one thing I really like is this deployable cooling systems, where you have a chance to reduce the cooldowns. I love that one. Being able to get back to those powerful attacks really quickly was huge during the normal mode. The other things that I tend to like are things that recover protection. The leader's resolve is very good for those leaders that share stats. And then I don't have and anything that's affecting turn meter I tend to like. So gaining speed, pulling turn meter from the enemy, increasing my turn meter, those I look for. This time around, though, I haven't encountered too many of those. Or when I did, I preferred other data discs. Like I think when I did see one, I had the option between a turn meter one or this cooling system is one. I went with a cooling system. But I will be pulling those. In a future video, I'll break down more of the data discs I like, especially after I do this hard mode and get a better handle on what I like or dislike. But I am happy that there is this new PvE mode that gives us something that we can do every day. And I think by pulling back on the refreshes, I'm reducing the workload and time in game a little bit, because I feel like my time in game has been increasing and I want to get that a little bit more balanced. Next up is the armor has now become farmable on light side 9C. Baze is remaining on that node. I'm glad Baze is staying there, because on the new account I was probably never going to touch Baze, and now that Baze is there, I will probably get around to doing that character eventually on that account. But on my main account, I will be hitting the armor immediately and going after those shards as quickly as possible. I have all my other farms done, so I'm able to refresh those nodes as much as I want, and I get through those farms fairly quickly now. I think I was able to get through Moff Gideon in a month. I won't be able to do that as quickly with the armor, but maybe a month and a half. Depends on those drop rates, but we will be farming her fairly quickly. I've got her geared up and ready to go, so we'll be able to see how much those stars add to her viability and get to a point where we can test that squad's viability overall as quickly as possible. Most of my Mandalorians are in that gear 11 range, and maybe one of the things I'll do in the future is when squads work at gear 11, I can put out some footage and show what those squads look like. I was looking at doing that with Dark Trooper, but Dark Trooper was not really working for me at 3 stars in gear 11. It was too fragile. You could get through those stacks way too quick. So So for the free-to-play gearing of my account, the only things I have done since the last video was I threw a Zeta on Old Ben to qualify for the light side territory battle Jedi power levels, and the other thing was gearing up Dark Trooper. So we'll take a quick look at Dark Trooper. His utility seems to be fairly limited at 3 stars. It seems like maybe if I got him up to 4 or 5 stars, it'd be a little bit better. I am going to throw the Zeta on him. I don't think it's a great one. I think if he was geared up more, it would be more usable. With right now, though, I think without it at 3 stars, I'm not really going to be able to get the utility that I even want to experiment around with. And I'm not going to use crystals to gear him up or to star him up any further. Now what I want to really do today is what we're really working on are those Jedi Master Luke requirements. I am going to take all these characters here that are at gear 11. They're going to go up to gear 12. And then Leia. I'll look at those finishers a little later, but that now takes all of those characters who are required for Jedi Master Luke are now at gear 12. I'm getting fairly close, but I need a crazy amount of those furnaces and those med packs that all those gear 12 characters need. So these furnaces I need a ton of, and the med pack, you know what I'm talking about. We're not going to take a look at those. The other thing we'll do right now is we will take Rey up to gear 13. And let me see what R2 needs, which Kairos, because I don't want to get too low on Kairos. Alright. And we'll take R2 up. So that gets us a lot closer. The next two are going to be Mon Mothma and Chewie, 3PO Chewie. They will be brought up to gear 13 next before I touch any of those other guys down below. Old Ben, we're taking our time on, but Old Ben will be finished before Biggs, Wedge, or Leia. And you know what I am going to do? I'm going to throw on one of these furnaces right now. Just because I want that health boost, make him a little stronger. And other than that, I don't think there's any Zetas or anything else I really care to work on with any of these characters. The one thing I'd like to do is make my... Let me see where we're at. I'm going to take Phasma up a level, but that's going to get us way low on our Carbantes. Because I want that command shuttle to be much better than it is. I think that's all we're going to do for this period of time. Although I think we might have a good amount of stun cuffs. We'll take the probe droid up one. And I think that's it for now. We're at a point with Zetas where we are deep into luxury Zeta territory. Like, I think what I'm on my list of Zetas I'm considering, like we're looking at First Order Stormtrooper, like IG-88, the second Hermit Yoda one, or a Sing. Greed, like maybe CLS. I could do, you know what, let's do that. That's one we can do. We'll throw on the last CLS one. Alright. That's good for today. So that gets me a whole lot closer to Jedi Master Luke. I think I need 400 or so of those fusion furnaces in order to get all those characters up to relics. And it's cutting it pretty close. One of the things that I talk about is in my squad arena, the philosophy I have is all about gearing characters just enough to finish where I want to finish. And where I want to finish is in the top 100. Like usually at my best, I'll be around the top 20 to 30, sometimes creeping into that top 20. And then anywhere between there and 100, I'm basically satisfied. The crystal difference is not enough where I care about. But if I fall out of the top 100, that's not acceptable. And that's where I'll start prioritizing gear a ton more in that direction. So that's where I'm at. Thank you for watching. Be safe out there, everyone, and be excellent to each other.